All right, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis. We have got the AFC East preview, NFC East, not the AFC. We did the AFC East last year, but we have got the AFC East preview for you coming hot off the presses. I am going to have to double up one of these weeks just so I can fit all of the division previews in there because I did start a little bit late this year. That's on me. That's on me. I didn't do the math. I probably should have done the math, but yeah, whenever I get done with work, I completely turn my brain off, folks. It's just there's just nothing going on between these ears and behind these eyes after a certain hour of the day. So I apologize. I didn't do that math until the very last second there, but we got the NFC East preview for you. Got a couple of headlines at the top of the show, but this is Unqualified Analysis, baby. Go ahead, hit the follow on social medias at CalebVUA. Hit the subscribe, like, all that good stuff, blah, 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 blah. Shoot me a DM if you want to opine in any way, shape, or form. We're going to have to nip that in the bud at some point. Probably not, though, because we're never going to get big enough, but a man can dream, I suppose. A man can dream. Anyways, we got some headlines for you. A couple interesting ones that I'm going to try and get through as quickly as possible in the interest of getting to the AFC East preview. But a lot of stuff to sink our teeth into here, so let's just get right into it, shall we? We have got a couple of headlines here. A lot of extension news and a lot of players signing. They're basically only one second-round pick was signed heading into like the week that rookies report to training camp. So interesting times. We'll talk about it, but we have got ourselves a bit of a controversial headline off the rip here. First and foremost, not something we've really covered on this show at all, but we can say some real shit actually happened now. So we're looking at it at this very moment. Better late than never, right? The NFLPA leadership is shaking up at this point. Biggest bubblegum union in American pro sports. We'll put a pin in that and get to it here right in a second. Just a second. Easy for me to say. We got to talk about the meat of this headline here. Executive Vice President of the Players Association, I believe the highest ranking member. He took DeMaurice Smith's job there as you know after DeMaurice Smith left. He is resigned as of last week following the revelation that he orchestrated a cover-up of the NFL owners' collusion to keep players from getting fully guaranteed contracts. By the way, I've talked about him before on this podcast. If you are a curious person that likes investigative journalism, Pablo Torre, man, he absolutely snapped on this one. Did 2 episodes on Pablo Torre Finds Out, which I would go ahead and take a listen. He did it with Mike Florio, who was a labor lawyer for a long period of time before he started just writing articles at a hilarious speed. He's on his blog, Pro Football Talk, now a part of NBC. Go listen to that because it is fascinating, and those are 2 guys that can chew through legal documents like you truly only see in a law office, quite frankly. It's a beautiful thing to see. They parse it out for everyone. They just blew this story wide open, though. They had the initial story talking about the confidential settlement agreement for collusion there, that Lloyd Howell colluded with the owners to keep that under wraps. That's one thing. Other thing here, I mean, we had some stuff come out, man. So first and foremost, first off, there was I listened to the second episode. I hadn't listened to it whenever I initially wrote down the headline, but I listened to the second episode that they did over the weekend, and it wasn't even really talking about the collusion. It's just all of the other shit going on with Lloyd Howell and this players union. So I guess going back to, I believe it was 2023 when J.C. Tretter, which we'll talk about him in just a second too, another guy that resigned over the weekend, actually, after it seemed like he was going to be elected the president of the Players Union once again. Did not turn out that way, I would say, in direct correlation with some things that came out from Pablo Torre's reporting, but put a pin in that here for just a second. So J.C. Tretter was on a podcast back in 2023 talking about running backs getting paid and strategies to get paid. And I think this was pretty widely circulated when he put out this dumbass comment. Very new as the union leader. really should not have said this stuff and probably would not say this sort of stuff publicly now. But he essentially implied that, and we might have even talked about it on this podcast, he essentially implied that running backs, he could not, what was his exact wording? He could not recommend players faking injuries in order to get contracts, at least not publicly. That was basically his exact words. And, buddy, if you'd have just lopped off that last couple words there, the at least not publicly, nothing really wrong with this quote because you disavowed it publicly. The problem is when you say that you can't recommend something like that publicly, ultimately it comes into question, well, if you said that line, it really kind of sounds like you're recommending it privately, doesn't it? So the NFL filed a grievance against Players Association for that. The NFL won, and interesting part here, instead of letting the players know that, hey, you don't have a leg to stand on now because we already lost this grievance because our Players Association head is a fucking dipshit who stuck his foot in his mouth, instead of saying that, they covered it up, didn't let anyone know, for what I can only assume is the reason of they didn't want to look bad to their constituency. So just corrupt politician shit, just classic political union bullshit that you see in a lot of corrupt unions. Not incredibly shocked by this from the NFLPA. So with that coming out, also some stuff here on Lloyd Howell. The NFLPA hired a private investigator, I believe, right after Pablo Torre's first episode came out about this collusion. Maybe even before that. Might have been something that they caught wind of whenever they started making that decision or making that podcast there previously. But what came out from the private investigator's report here is he expensed two separate, that being Lloyd Howell, that is. Again, we'll get to J.C. Tretter here in just a second. Lloyd Howell expensed two trips to the strip club, easy for me to say once again, including a $738 car service from the airport directly to said strip club. I believe it was Magic City in Atlanta. Good wings, lemon pepper Lou Will. Jack Harlow, I do not forget that you dry snitched on Lou Williams. I don't condone what Lou Williams did. But Jack Harlow, I don't condone what you did either. That's just not right. Not right. Clout chasing and you got someone in trouble doing it, and I don't condone that, and I will never forget that Jack Harlow did that. But we'll keep it moving from there. He expensed it on the union's dime. That was the big headline. I'm sure there's other stuff with how crazy, corrupt Lloyd Howell ended up being. Not the least of which, and it was discussed pretty prominently in this Pablo Torre Finds Out episode, he just has a side gig with the Carlyle Group, which you probably don't know who the Carlyle Group is. You don't have any reason to know who the Carlyle Group is. All you need to know is they were one of the private equity firms that the NFL approved for taking minority stake in pro football franchises. Truly all you need to know. It's a massive conflict of interest. They just breezed past it. And by the way, J.C. Tretter, I talked about him resigning. He apparently completely changed, maybe not completely changed, but made a change to the NFLPA constitution so he could keep the entire process of finding Lloyd Howell under wraps. Did not really consult the players at all in that hiring process. Went with Lloyd Howell. It was kind of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge thing. So he was the chief strategy officer before, which is a role that Lloyd Howell created himself. As all great con artists do, they find a way to weasel their way into the door for their own personal gain. So that's how he was there already. They interviewed him, promoted him to executive vice president. Basically, it was just J.C. Tretter and a small cadre of informed players that made that decision. And I'm sure the day of reckoning will come for those players. But J.C. Tretter is the one that got the axe now because ultimately, lo and behold, how did this happen, man? I mean, I'm looking at the org chart here for the NFLPA up until, just this past week. And Lloyd Howell, he's up there at executive vice president. Who's that in chief strategy officer right there? Is that J.C. Tretter? Is that you? Is that you? I mean, this is just, if the NFLPA actually did their fucking job on a consistent basis, and if they actually had some teeth, I wouldn't give them all the shit that I give them for being truly, probably of the four major sports. I got to think about this. Baseball, pretty strong. Hockey, maybe a little bit more weak than the NFL, but the NFL, they're not ahead of the NBA Players Association just by virtue of the numbers there, pretty much. I mean, there's fewer NBA players, and as such, they are more important to the entire team, and they play on both sides of the ball. So that's already, they have more power than, I would say they're probably the most powerful union just because, I mean, just by virtue of who they are and what they do for a team. The Stars just have more power and more leverage than any other sport. But NFL, they're either third or fourth as far as the Players Association and strength of the Players Association, and it's because of shit like this. It's because for the longest time, if you had a working set of eyes and could read and critically think and look at the situation from a treetop's perspective, you could tell for a long time, dating back to DeMaurice Smith even, the people that were running the union truly were in cahoots with the NFL. And no one's ever going to come out outright and say that. You saw it played out plainly in what has happened here, covering up the collusion settlement, doing what they did to hide the decision from the grievance that the NFL filed against the NFLPA for the faking injuries quote from J.C. Tretter. It's self-interest, it's greed, it is outright collusion with the ownership group, and that's why this union is a joke, man. It's a complete joke, and maybe all this public information and the embarrassment that it has caused the Players Association, or the Players Union, I think it's the Players Association, I can't quite remember. Whatever you want to call them, the union, the embarrassment that it has caused to the union should be a wake-up call for him, because this, make no mistake about it, is one of the more embarrassing things that has come out in my memory, quite frankly. I don't remember a story, and maybe I just wasn't conscious enough in the earlier years of me watching sports. I mean, I've been watching sports now since I was about 12, so 17 years at this point I've been watching sports. I ain't seen nothing like this as far as like a level of embarrassment for the Players Association, the NFL specifically. I mean, in my lifetime of watching sports, it's real bad. And I have lost even more respect for them. I can't say I'm surprised, but there is something to be said about confirming some things that you already kind of sort of thought were a thing already. There is something to be said about that does make you lose even more respect. But it's not just me. It's a lot of people that look at this, look at it on the face and say, rightly so, this union's a fucking joke. It's an absolute joke. And I wish that wasn't the case. And they are fighting an uphill battle because of the four major sports, they have the largest rosters, a crazy disparity between the high end of that roster and the low end of that roster, and there's a lot more people on the low end of that roster that have their own influences. It really creates like a bit of an, I don't want to call it infighting, but a conflict of interests within the negotiating class, I suppose you could say, for the Players Association. So I don't discount that they're fighting a bit of an uphill battle just because they have to all get on the same page, and the owners are already all on the same page. They're fighting an uphill battle in that respect. It doesn't help to have executives that are outright corrupt, colluding with the ownership, and just generally being shitty labor executives. I mean, just call it like it is. Just being bad representatives for labor, and ultimately, I mean, you can probably point some things out here and there, screwing guys over. Just absolutely screwing guys over, and I'm glad this all came to light when it did, so that we can kind of clear the slate and maybe go forward from here. But it's all bad right now, and all I can hope for is that maybe this is a wake-up call, because an imbalance of power either way, towards the ownership or towards the players, just not good. We need to be butting heads at as much of a stalemate as you can muster, given that the owners are always going to be at an advantage in this, and there's really no way around that. But we need to get, it's like 60-40 right now, maybe 65-35 in favor of the owners. We needed at least like 55-45 here. That's truly all we're asking for here, to make things a little bit better, is just kind of bring it back to the median a little bit more. You're never going to be at 50-50 as far as the power is concerned, just by virtue of what you're going up against. But it needs to be better than it is right now. It needs to change, and I'm interested to see where it goes. But we are already 16 minutes into this thing, and I've only gotten through the first headline. So we're going to rapid fire some stuff here. So the Chiefs paid guard Trey Smith the highest annual per year contract. Nailed it in NFL history. 4 years, $94 million. That is quick math at home. It's $23.5 million over 4 years, $23.5 million per year. That is the highest paid guard in league history. $70 million of that is guaranteed, and they have locked up their All-Pro for years to come. And that's great news for the Chiefs. They're going to figure it out. They have Patrick Mahomes and they have Andy Reid for however much longer Andy Reid is going to be there. They're going to figure it out. I have no question about it. They are still the cream of the crop in that division. Make no bones about that. I have no drama in who I am going to pick to win this division whenever I get there on the previews. Shortly thereafter, the Jets got an extension done for All-Pro cornerback Sauce Gardner. It is 4 years, $120.4 million, which is just a hilarious number. I mean, I just want to be a notch above $30 million a year, just a notch above. Now that notch is $100,000, which makes me cry at night, I suppose. But still, when you're talking numbers that big, that's just hilariously petty. $60 million of that is guaranteed. So basically, first two years of the deal are guaranteed, and then an option after the third. But it's Sauce Gardner. I think he's going to make every single cent on that contract, if we're being honest with ourselves. This one comes a day after they threw a bag at Garrett Wilson, which we talked about last week. So props to the Jets. They're acting like a downright competent team right now, signing their good players to big-time deals before it becomes a real albatross to sign them later on down the line, because the contracts are only going to go up. So props to them for getting those out of the way fairly early so it doesn't bleed into next offseason. Jordan Addison and Rashee Rice both resolved their ongoing legal cases. Rashee Rice is doing 30 days in jail for his driving incident. Jordan Addison ended up pleading to a lesser charge. He's just going to get probation and has to take some classes, all that sort of stuff. So he basically got off with a slap on the wrist. Rashee Rice is at least doing jail time, so not exactly a slap on the wrist. Now that the legal process has played out, we are going to see what the NFL does as far as suspensions are concerned. And I should have looked up the precedent before this. I do apologize. I feel like generally for these sorts of things, it's like 2 to 4 games, depending on the severity. Maybe Rashee Rice is going to get closer to 4. If I had to guess, both are probably going to end up getting 4 games when it's all said and done. Maybe you see a lower degree for Jordan Addison because nobody got hurt in what he was doing. He just, call it like it is, was a dumbass. He was just asleep in his car, like at the airport in the middle of the road, which is fucking dumb, but it's not quite as dumb as what Rashee Rice did. So I guess props to him for what little props that is. That's where I'm looking at, though. I would imagine both are going to get suspensions. I just don't exactly know how long. The one I'm really curious about is Jordan Addison. For one, because he's on my team that I cheer for. But two, because he did plead to a lesser charge. He did not get jail time like Rashee Rice did. I think Rashee Rice is going to get slapped a little bit with the book. Jordan Addison, I'm not so sure about. I think there's a chance that one could be a little bit shorter than maybe some are expecting. So we're just going to wait and see how that plays out. I don't think the NFL is going to take too long on this. I think they're probably going to end up handing these down before the season happens, if I had to guess. Now that the legal process is played out, you're not going to tell me they haven't been doing some investigating on the side before this point. So it's really just putting the finishing touches on what they already are kind of in agreement that they are going to do. So I don't think we're going to have to wait long on those. But hey, I could be proven wrong on that front. We'll just have to wait and see. Put a pin in that one for now. I am sure we will revisit whenever those suspensions are handed down, or lack thereof for that matter. Chargers wide receiver Mike Williams is retiring. Thought he was going to get a nice little reunion, but just too many injuries. I mean, he only played 8 years when it was all said and done. He was just banged up every single year. And so he's retiring after 8 seasons. Congrats on a solid career. Made himself some good money. Signed one big contract with the Chargers. I think he signed a nice little 1 year with the Bears last year. So hopefully you manage your money properly. You can ride off into the sunset, Mr. Williams. I will say, don't think the Chargers were missing all that much with losing Mike Williams. Now, that he was just a ticking time bomb as far as his body is concerned. It's probably for the best that he is going out, because he would have just gotten injured again this season, and I know he knows that. So, hey, wish him all the best in retirement. Hope he lands on his feet. And, hey, we'll see where life takes him from there. But the Chargers have themselves a wide receiver problem still. They drafted Trey Harris. They're going to need him to step up in a big way, probably more so than what his draft position would indicate. They're going to need him to step up this coming season. You know what you're getting from Ladd McConkey. I want to say they have a tight end. They brought in Gerald Everett, I want to say, on that team, unless I'm wholly mistaken. Maybe he went to the LA Rams. I don't know, man. I feel like Gerald Everett is just made a career off of bouncing around the AFC West. Or really just the LA teams. I think he likes LA a lot. I don't know. Either way, congrats to Mike Williams on a solid career. TJ Watt, Steelers got that done. That one is huge. 3 years, $123 million on the extension. $108 million of that is guaranteed. He is now the highest paid non-QB in the entire NFL on an annual basis. And hey, worth every cent. I told you all that the Steelers should do this, and I had faith that the Steelers would ultimately do this. It's something that you have to do, especially in an all-in season like this, and make no bones about it. It is an all-in season right now for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You got to have all your horses in the building, and you got to have them from day one. So I am excited to see what the Steelers team does this year. They're still in a difficult division, but I think with the quarterback, if they can keep him upright and give him a clean pocket for the most part, they're going to win some games this year. I could see him win it all the way up to like 11, I would say. I don't want to spoil my division preview for the AFC North too much, but I am pretty high on the Steelers this year. They're very much, it is win this year, and I don't know what's going to happen next year. They're probably going to be back to 8-9, 9-8 if I had to guess, because that's just the floor for Mike Tomlin when we really look at things. But that is a big one. Steelers needed to do that. Also, Will Levis, he's out for the season after undergoing season-ending shoulder surgery. So I think we have probably... I mean, maybe Will Levis gets one more opportunity after this on a team that's like, fuck it. It's a transition year. Maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers, although I think Will Levis would literally drive Mike Tomlin insane. I think Mike Tomlin might stab Will Levis in the throat if that is his quarterback because of all the crazy mistakes. He might get one more chance to be a starter again, but that's just... experiment failed. It's not going to happen. You can be as talented as you want, but if you don't got it between the ears, it's just not happening. At the very least, you probably got a lucrative modeling career ahead of you, Will Levis. You're an attractive man, if nothing else, and jacked out of your mind, too. Probably too jacked for a quarterback. Maybe less time in the gym and more time in the film room with someone who can teach you how to watch film. But, you know what? You're going to land on your feet there, buddy. A big, attractive man like you, you're going to land on your feet. Just don't get into drugs. It's my one advice. Don't get into drugs. That's really ended darkly for a lot of people in the past. But it's Cam Ward's job, man. It was already that way coming into it. Now the backup is Brandon Allen, so you better hope to God Cam Ward stays healthy, because things are looking a little bit scary if you do not have your number one overall pick quarterback in there, but that was the case regardless. It arguably would have looked scarier with Will Levis in there, considering the decision-making we've seen from him. I mean, he almost killed Brian Callahan, man. Brian Callahan was at his wit's end. Brian Callahan was giving himself a pep talk at 3 a.m. whenever he woke up to come to work, saying, "You will not stab Will Levis today. You won't do it. You're not going to commit violence today for some dumb shit that you see on the football field or in film that you are watching. You're not going to do it. Brian Callahan had to give himself that pep talk every single morning when Will Levis was the starting quarterback. And hey, at the very least, you're helping out your head coach's heart there. So we'll see how it works out. Will Levis will not be in the picture, though. That being said, we are fucking 25 minutes into this thing, and we have not spoken a word about the NFC East. I keep saying AFC. It's the NFC. So let me get a swig here, and we're going to power through this right now. I'm going to absolutely power through it as fast as we possibly can, just so long as we don't get totally delineated. No promises there. Let's be honest here. No promises. Ooh, that's good stuff. That's good stuff right there. Okie dokie. So, starting off, we have got the NFC East here. We're just going down the division standings. An interesting division at the very top, at the very least. And I don't think it's going to be drastically different this year other than, Dak Prescott's in there. Honestly, the more I think about it, the more I think this division might be a little bit interesting. So let's just crack right into this thing. So starting off, we got the Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. What more is there to say about them? They already got their ring. I mean, the champs is the champs. You can't really talk a whole lot of shit about them because the champs is the champs. So, on the offense, mostly the same returning cast with one or two reductions there. So we got Jalen Hurts at quarterback, Saquon Barkley and Will Shipley in the backfield. A.J. Dillon is the third. Probably on an early cut watch list, but who am I to say? A.J. Brown is the number one wide receiver. Devontae Smith, the number 2. Here's where things get a little bit interesting because Jahan Dotson is still the number 3. Jahan Dotson is not very good. So my big prediction for this season as far as the receiving core goes is one of these next 3. I'm talking Anais Smith, Terrace Marshall, Johnny Wilson. One of those 3 is going to step up and ultimately take that third job by the balls. I'm looking at Anais Smith here, man, and I know it was college. I know what it was. But Anais Smith in college was a beast. He was an absolute beast. And I feel like with the guys ahead of him to kind of learn and learn by osmosis off of, I feel like Anais Smith is going to be the one that steps up in this situation. Johnny Wilson, I mean, I guess he's just such a bad blocker that you can't really put him at tight end. He's going to play a role in red zone. He is not going to be your third receiver. He's going to be a bit of a gadget player, I would say, for lack of a better term. Guys you're going to put in there in red zone. A guy that, if you want to throw up a jump ball, I mean, the motherfucker's 6'7", so probably just throw it up to him. Terrace Marshall, he might be on the outside looking in. I don't really know where Terrace Marshall fits in all this, but I'm very high on Anais Smith this year because I think he's got a lot of room to go ahead and take his playing time here from Jahan Dotson. So I'm excited to see that. We got Dallas Goedert there at the tight end, the starting tight end, veteran backup Grant Calcaterra, which is probably a big reason why Johnny Wilson is not playing tight end, is the backup. Then the offensive line is the offensive line from the past couple of years. So, I mean, we have got Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson on the left side. Cam Jurgens is still the center, and he did admirably last year playing instead of Kelsey for the first time. Right guard, slotting in after Mekhi Becton leaves for the Chargers. Tyler Steen is the next man up. And listen, man, as long as they got that offensive line coach, Jeff Stoutland, out there, I have no worries about whoever the hell they slot into that right guard slot, because it seems like every single one of them gets paid after they play in there. And, of course, you got Lane Johnson, the ageless, the Hall of Famer, Lane Johnson, best right tackle in the league for quite some time. He is there. Probably, I mean, one of the best left-right tackle duos in the entire NFL. Jordan Mailata, somehow underrated as a left tackle. One of the craziest athletes that we have in the NFL. Elite offensive line, elite wide receivers, at least as far as the top 2, elite. Best running back in the entire league. A top 10 quarterback in your very worst projections, I would say, in Jalen Hurts. only thing that gives me pause on just stamping them as a top 5 offense is they are once again replacing their offensive coordinator, because Kellen Moore was hired by the who did he get hired by? The Saints. Forgot who he got hired by for a second. He got hired by the Saints to be their head coach. So I do not actually know who the offensive coordinator is now for the Philadelphia Eagles, but that is the big wild card. If they can kind of adopt a lot of the things that Kellen Moore did last year and continue to build off of that, I mean, it's not that hard. I'm vastly oversimplifying the job of an offensive coordinator here, but listen, the formula is simple here. You just go ahead and you run Saquon Barkley like a motherfucker. You throw in some Jalen Hurts. When you get into short yardage, you run the tush push, and you got to throw in some creative pass concepts in there too, but you got Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown there on the outside. You have the best offensive line in the entire league. You play behind that. Compared to the job that a lot of offensive coordinators have, guy in Philly's not doing too bad. So I would say the floor is probably a top 10 offense. If they are anything below that, I would say the offensive coordinator might be fired by the end of the season, because there's no way with this personnel group they should be any lower than a top 10 offense. If they play up to their potential, they'll be easily top 5, and they'll be right there at the end of the day once again. So that's the offense. Looking at the defense now, we got some new names over there. It's a lot of new look. This is where they shed a lot of salary cap this offseason, because they simply have to with that quarterback contract on the books and all the other high-priced offensive players they have. So they have a guy named Moro Ojomo. Hold, please. Drafted in 2023 7th-round pick. He's in there because Milton Williams got signed by the Patriots, so we'll see on that front. Outside of that, on the defensive line, we got some names that you've heard. Obviously, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, a monstrous duo coming from the same college in back-to-back years. Just an embarrassment of riches over there with the Georgia Bulldogs and that defensive line. Just crazy group they had a couple years ago. And many will say Jalen Carter was the best defensive tackle even when Jordan Davis was on that team, which is it should tell you how great Jalen Carter is, and he's borne that out in the NFL. So there's your defensive line. We got some new players here in the pass rushing unit. So we have got Nolan Smith, still there from last year. He's going to have to step up in a big way coming into, I believe it's year 2, year 3 at this point, I believe he's coming into. So he's going to have to step up in a big way. He is poised to do so. He is one of the faster edge rushers, very explosive, an all-around player, a leader, a guy that you love to have on your defense, and I think he's going to be a Philadelphia Eagle for a long, long time. Zach Bond on the interior, Nakobe Dean also on the interior, two guys that had big seasons last year. Then Azeez Ojulari steps into the opposite pass rusher slot there from Nolan Smith. Behind those two pass rushers, Nolan Smith and Azeez Ojulari, we got Josh Uche and Jalix Hunt. Also waiting in the wings there as inside linebacker, though we'll see if they move him around a little bit. Great athlete, Jihad Campbell, first-round pick who slipped a little bit because of some injury concerns. We'll see what they get out of him. I would be very excited if I were a Philadelphia Eagles fan, getting Jihad Campbell when you got him. He was projected to be a top 10 pick for a reason. He was the best inside linebacker in the entire draft. So the rich just keep getting richer on that front. A lot of question marks here, a lot of young players for this Philadelphia front seven. But I'll tell you what, I trust the defensive coordinator, and frankly, I trust Howie Roseman to get the right players in there. He does not hit on every draft pick because he would be the greatest GM of all time. An argument to be made that he is, quite frankly, but that's a different argument for a different day, different discussion for a different day. I just trust him to get the right players in there. So, yes, you had some attrition, you had some big-time names leave, but I trust them to replace in the aggregate, and I trust some players in there to step up. I think Nolan Smith's going to have a huge year. I think Jalen Carter, once again, poised to have a huge year. Nakobe Dean, we'll see what the health holds for him, but you got Jihad Campbell waiting in the wings if it ultimately doesn't work out for him. Azeez Ojulari, I think he is going to be the benefactor of a really good scheme, and I have faith on that front seven. So I think they're going to get the job done, though it may not look the same as it has the last couple of years with those big-time pass rushers that they've had in that building, but they always reload. I have faith in them to reload. On the back end, We have got a new look secondary back there. Oh, buddy, we have got Quinyon Mitchell, stud, bona fide number one corner in the NFL. I'm excited to see what he does in year 2 there on the outside. He's going to be your number one corner. We got on the other side, Keely Ringo, which I'm going to just say, I watched him in college, and I know the combine numbers are what they are. I just hope to God he's improved some lateral quickness, because there's a reason I was hoping they'd move him to safety. If he's your starting outside corner, boy, oh boy, I've got some questions there. Maybe he's just really improved, really improved since he came in the league. I'm worried about the tactical routes. I'm worried about him going against routes that aren't just a straight up 9. I'll just put it that way. So we'll see. He'll stop the deep play. We'll see what he does outside of that, though. I'm less than optimistic on that front. But hey, let's try to be optimistic where we can, I suppose. Cooper DeJean, stud. Probably should be the outside corner, but he's so valuable at the nickel, he's kind of just getting pigeonholed there. Probably better on the books as well, because they're going to have to pay both him and Quinyon Mitchell an exorbitant amount of money by the time their contracts are ready to be up. I mean, they're both rookies last year, going into their second years now. Safety is where we get a little bit dicey, or a little even more dicey than we already were. Reed Blankenship at the strong safety, Andrew Makuba as the free safety, which I apologize to Mr. Makuba. I am not familiar with his game. He is a second-round pick coming out of Texas, and they're going to expect big things from him by virtue of that draft position, if nothing else. So, a super young defense overall. I don't know what you can expect from them on an overall thing. I think this is going to be one of those setups where, with all these young players in there, I think they might struggle. They might be a little bit disjointed early on in the season. Might give up some big games here and there. But I feel like when you get into the latter half of the season here, when you're starting to talk about week 10 going forward, so that playoff push, I think they're going to start playing very well. I think that's a pattern that's borne out year after year in Vic Fangio's systems, is that maybe sometimes, especially when you have a lot of turnover early on in the season, not going to look pretty. But if you trust the process and players get acclimated more and more as the season goes along, you start seeing the results later in the season when the scheme starts coming alive and you have players playing within their scheme to the highest level. Sorry, I just had to expel some gas there from the GI tract, upper GI tract, not lower GI tract on that one. So tentatively, I would put him right in the middle of the pack, like probably, anywhere from 12 to 15, give or take. Could be more, could be less on that front. I think the struggles early on in the season are gonna hold down their overall numbers, but I do think they will be playing well by the time playoffs come around, and that's really all that matters. So we look at this Philadelphia Eagles team, and barring injury, I got their worst case scenario probably 10-7. And that's barring injury to the quarterback. Injuries will happen all over the roster otherwise. That's just the game of football. Injuries that you don't expect and injuries that are critical will happen pretty much no matter what, I will say. But that 10-7 is kind of like, okay, maybe a big-time player goes down. Maybe you get even more attrition on the defense. Maybe the injury bug hits bad on defense and you just have to start outscoring people. That'll hold the wins down a little bit, because there are some teams that can really dominate you on both sides of the ball that will just ultimately pull away. Even then, I'm looking at 10-7. They're still a playoff team at that point. So I would have no worries about them there. Upper level is, they're every bit as much of a Super Bowl contender as they have been, just maybe a little bit less so because they don't have as many proven names on the defensive side of the ball. Not far off from where they've been over the last couple of years, though. They should be right in the thick of things. They are once again the best team in this division. I put their peak at like 14 wins, I would say. 13, 14 wins. So they're probably going to fall somewhere on the spectrum there to where maybe we will see a little bit of regression record-wise, or regression record-wise due to some early season struggles. I don't really see a Super Bowl hangover for this team, though. I think they're going to be gearing up, ready to go when it comes playoff time. So that's what I think about the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's go to the second team in the division last year, a team that got all the way to the conference finals last year, the NFC Championship last year even. So we had... Who was it? The Washington Commies coming up here at number 2 in the division, bringing back a lot of the same players, and they went all in on this season. I think they have a really, really good squad, so let's get right into it. Jaden Daniels at quarterback, stud coming into year 2. I expect big things from him. I know historically it's been a bit of a sophomore slump for guys going into their second year, but I trust Jaden Daniels, and I love the continuity that he has with the offensive coordinator there in Cliff Kingsbury, who can call an offense. He is a pretty good offensive coordinator, just maybe not quite so much a good head coach at the end of the day. Running backs, Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, Chris Rodriguez there at the third slot. Not the flashiest running back room in the entire league, but a solid one nonetheless. Not one that you're really going to be writing home about, but one that can win you games. That's one that bears mentioning there, if nothing else. Wide receivers, this is where we start seeing the all-in. So we got Terry McLaurin. Pay that man his money. That's all I got to say. Pay that man his money. Your quarterback's on a rookie deal. Pay him the money he deserves. He is still the number 1 receiver on this team. Even though you went out and got Debo, who is the number 2 receiver, and you paid him $30 million, kind of puts you in a spot with the guy who's actually your best receiver, Terry McLaurin. Pay that man his money. He deserves it, and I'm tired of them holding out on him. Get him what he deserves, quite frankly. Noah Brown is over there at, also I believe they paid Debo like 25. I don't want to speak out of turn on that one. Noah Brown is your third receiver, which is not an ideal situation, but you hope that guys like Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane step up. Maybe you get like something out of the tank of Michael Gallup, though that's kind of asking a lot. He might be on the possible cut list when it's all said and done. KJ Osborne all the way there all the way in the back of the line. That's not a great place that you want to be in right there. He's going to be fighting for a roster spot for sure. But I'm less than impressed with this wide receiver core. I trust the offensive coordinator. But you got to pay Terry McLaurin that money. You don't have to. You should not be messing around with what this is right now. Solidly average receiving core. Good top 2. After that, it's a bit of a mystery, but Noah Brown is not the worst third receiver in the league. I will tell you that right now. Tight end, bit of a question mark here. So Zach Ertz is the number 1. Ben Sinnott, who they drafted all the way in last year, I'm pretty sure. He is in the third string tight end right now, behind John Bates. And I have to verify this. Yeah, he got drafted second round last year. He is their third string. Only caught 5 balls all of last year, and now he's behind John Bates. So, not fantastic. Looks like they may have whiffed on that second round pick, but is what it is. We'll see. Got Zach Ertz for like 1 more year, probably. Not ideal on that front. Offensive line is improved, though. They got Laramie Tunsil in there from the Houston Texans, who's not the Laramie Tunsil that we saw, say, 5 years ago, but is still a solid left tackle that you can, help. It helps out. It's better than what they had before. I'll just put it that way. Nick Allegretti is the left guard, which, sure. Tyler Biadasz at center, which is good. Sam Cosmi at right guard, which, again, sure. And Josh Connerly, who they drafted here in the first round, is your right tackle. So, better than they did last year. They are still probably an off-season away from putting themselves in a position to have a really, really good offensive line. They're just right there at the Mendoza line right now. Obviously, the cap on this offense is going to be Jaden Daniels. If he has a sophomore slump, this could be a tough year for him because you look at the rest of the offensive roster, they not really a 12-5 offense when you really take a look at it. What makes them a 12-5 offense is the man that is throwing the ball in Jaden Daniels. So if you keep up what you did last year, top 10 offense, easy. If he kind of has a regression, they're going to be middle of the road, if not worse, because they're still a work in progress on this side of the ball. They're still in a position where they outperformed what they really should have been just by the merits of the roster last year. And that's a credit to the coaching staff for sure. But let's still kind of temper expectations a little bit, because this is still a work in progress offense. So top 10 potential, I could definitely see him finishing in the middle of the pack, though. On the defensive side of the ball, they still improved. Hilariously enough, they signed Von Miller, I believe, like last week to be on the Commies. He's already slotted as their starting defensive end, which should tell you everything you need to know about the pass rush on this team. Not ideal. Dorrance Armstrong is rushing opposite of him, and not great. Not great. Deron Payne is the starting interior defensive tackle. Javon Kinlaw is the other starting interior defensive tackle. Jer'Jon Newton, I think you would have preferred that he step up and take that starting job over Javon Kinlaw, another guy that they drafted in the second round last year that is still working his way into the starting line. I'm not quite as bad as Ben Sinnott, but you're hoping for more from him this season, so we'll see if they get it. You got a couple people that play with their hair on fire back behind them. They got Frankie Louvu, Bobby Wagner. I'm not going to lie and say I know who Dominique Hampton is. I'm assuming he's a draft pick from last year. Okay. I guess he's basically like a hybrid safety role that they're playing for him, which you basically have to have in the modern NFL with how versatile offenses are. Defenses have to be just as versatile. So I trust. We'll say the entire defense, and then I'll say my thoughts on what I think about this roster here. So Mike Sainristil is stepping right into that starting outside corner role. I believe he was there at the end of the year last year. Will Harris is the strong safety. Quan Martin is the free safety. Marshawn Lattimore, still the starting cornerback, though I don't know how much longer that is going to be the case, because I don't know if you watched him last season, but he's looking a little long in the tooth at this point. A little bit slow at the outside corner position. So I will say that. Noah Igbenogany, nailed it, is the starting nickelback. And if you just look at this roster, Frankie Louvu's a guy that excites you. Deron Payne's one of the best defensive tackles in the entire league. Mike Sainristil, exciting young player. There's not really anyone that's that truly excites you on a day in, day out basis. I mean, as far as the roster, it's average to maybe slightly below average on the defensive side of the ball, but I just trust that defensive staff. I trust Dan Quinn. I trust the staff that he put together. They did better than they had any right to do last year, and they added in certain spots. I think they ultimately did lose quite a few. I mean, hey, Jonathan Allen, I remember that one. There's a reason Javon Kinlaw is starting, and it's because my boy Jonathan Allen came over to the Vikings, and I love to see it. I'm so excited for this season. But I have faith in that staff. I think they'll ultimately end up being by the numbers, middle of the road, right there, 15, 16. But I think this is a defense the nerds are going to love because, like I said, I think the staff is going to put them in position to where analytics are going to be very favorable for them, and key analytics are going to be high. I think that's how they are going to win with this roster, and with a general lack of pass rush. You can't expect to get consistent pass rush out of Von Miller at this stage in his career, so that's why I say that, obviously, especially when he doesn't really have a great option opposite of him. I mean, let's just look at what Dorrance Armstrong did last year. So 5 sacks. Not exactly a number one top-end pass rusher, and he's been in the league for quite some time. So we'll see. A lot of that was him being behind Dexter Lawrence and Micah Parsons this past year. So there is that. We'll see how it all works out for him. But the main thing is, I think they'll be middle of the road, but I think they're going to win in key situations because their coaching is just that good. So on the whole, I look at this team, very easily could go 7-10. And I don't say that lightly. I know they have Jaden Daniels as a starting quarterback. This is even without necessarily a rash of injuries. I just think they way outperformed. I mean, it's kind of the Giants' curse from when Brian Daboll took over. He just overperformed so much in that first year that when they fell back to earth and kind of played more to what their roster was in years 2 and 3, which was a work in progress, they came under heavy scrutiny, deserved in that case. But I think this roster played way above its steez last year, and it could very much fall back down to earth, even with having good coaching still there. And I love their quarterback. I don't think they have made a mistake like the Giants made a mistake signing Daniel Jones to that extension. But I just think that this roster is still a work in progress, and 7-10, especially in a division where the Giants are going to be better this year, even if they're not a playoff team ultimately when it's all said and done. Dak Prescott is going to be back as the quarterback for the Cowboys. The Eagles are the Eagles. Very easily could see 7-10. This could be a surprising team that drops out of it when it's all said and done. But the ceiling is still like 11, 12 wins, I would say. I mean, it's a wide variety of options we could do, and I wouldn't put the ceiling that high if I didn't see him do it just last year. And it's hard to do it 2 years in a row because you're not sneaking up on anyone this time around. But I don't put it past him. I don't put it past him at all. So that's kind of where I'm at with the Washington Commanders. No comment on President Trump. Just completely distracting from the Epstein files by calling for the Guardians and the Commanders to go back to their old names. I'm sure that'll work if you're an absolute dipshit. I am not, so it didn't work on me. And I don't think anyone in the NFL is going to pay that any mind whatsoever. But we are 50 minutes in. Yeah, we can get this done in a reasonable amount of time. We're making good progress. We're making good progress here. That's truly all that matters, especially as we get into these lower level teams that we can kind of just breeze through a little bit faster. So the Dallas Cowboys, tough season last year, ultimately did not make the playoffs. Played okay at spurts, but Dak Prescott was out, and there's not really much you can do on that front when he tears the hamstring from the bone. That is what it is on that front. Nothing you can do there. So Dak Prescott is back. Joe Milton, they traded for him this offseason, is the backup. You hope to God you don't have to see Joe Milton. Hey, especially with what poor soul did they get in there? Schottenheimer, not Marty Schottenheimer. I believe he's dead at this point. But Brian Schottenheimer, Shotty Tuhati, he is their new head coach, mostly because he's cheap. And Jerry Jones, great marketer. I mean, he fooled everyone into thinking he's willing to spend a bunch of money when in reality he's as much of a penny pincher as the rest of them. He just got good marketing behind him. So they skimped on the head coach. They hired a guy like Brian Schottenheimer, and hey, good luck, Brian Schottenheimer, because I don't think you're going to be getting put in the great position. Also, just an aside before we get into the roster here, it is worth noting here. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Jerry Jones. I swear to God, that guy has 3 square meals a day of nothing but foot. That guy is just putting his foot in his mouth every single hour of every single day. If you put a microphone in front of him, he's just going to instinctively, flexible old man, he'll just take the foot and right up there, right in his mouth. It's his favorite pastime. He just basically openly questioned. He's at that beautiful old, like mid-80s age where you just stop giving a fuck about anything, what comes out of your mouth. Because like I could die tomorrow. Who fucking cares? That's where Jerry Jones is at this point. He just like openly questioning whether he should have signed some of those big contracts like the CeeDee Lamb and like Dak Prescott and guys like that. And the reporter didn't even really ask about that. They were just asking like, okay, what's the difference in strategy here between like, okay, you wait longer for others, you don't for some guys. What's the difference in strategy there? And he just basically volunteered like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't have paid those guys that the money that we paid them back in the day. I don't know. So good luck to Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb. Yeah, good luck to you. Good luck to you, because I don't think that man is willing to pay a whole lot of money. He's probably just doing what Jerry Jones does. He's the most overhyped negotiator in all of professional sports, I feel like. Again, great marketer, great personality, a likable guy, just gets way too much credit for being a good executive when, in reality, he's a great culture guy. I feel like he can really he can tap in and build a strong relationship with, I believe, anyone on the face of this earth. He is that kind of people person, and I think he's good to have around a building. The problem is, as a GM and as an executive, he kind of fucking sucks. Has hit on some first-round picks, don't get me wrong, man. He's been pretty money on the first-round picks up until recently here. But he kind of sucks at negotiating. He kind of sucks at putting together a well-rounded roster. His son kind of sucks at drafting in the later rounds, man. I'll tell you what, they've really, if Jerry Jones were just the GM and someone else was the owner, Jerry Jones would have been fired a long time ago, folks. But he's the owner, and he's not going to fire himself, because when has any person in power willingly given up their power? Ever. Ever. Even if they're quote-unquote willingly giving it up, I can assure you there are forces behind the scenes forcing them out. No one in power generally ever gives it up willingly, we'll just say. And those that do are like the 1% of people who are genuinely great people, first ballot hall of the heavens, we'll just say. Going straight to heaven, those people, because those are the true people made in the image of Christ. I will say right there, I'm not a particularly religious man, but those are the virtuous people that you should be looking up to. There are not a whole lot of them. There are not a whole lot of them in this entire earth. Jerry Jones is certainly not one of them. So, yeah, that's all to say. The Cowboys is the Cowboys, and I truly do not take them seriously until changes happen. And I don't see any changes happening until Jerry Jones keels over. Not wishing for it to happen, obviously, but I'm really still not even sold on if Stephen Jones is going to be even better. Second generation ownership, you go look back at that track record, it's not just not great, it's outright terrible. So, I mean, Jim Irsay is probably the cream of the crop on that front, which should tell you what you need to know, because he ultimately wasn't a fantastic owner. He was just a good dude. So, yeah, you could get Jim Irsay, you could get Jim Dolan. That is the coin that you flip, and it's probably a worse odd than a coin flip on that. But I digress on the future of the Cowboys. What's happening in the right now? So in the right now, it's a pretty classic Cowboys roster, I'll say. Just not a whole lot of depth one way or the other. So you got Dak Prescott at quarterback, Joe Milton as the second string, Javonte Williams, who they brought in this offseason, as the starting running back, Miles Sanders as the second string running back, and Jaden Blue as the third string. Deuce Vaughn is still on the roster there at fourth. I'd probably take him over Jaden Blue, if we're being honest. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's not a good backfield. It's probably one of the worst backfields in the league, if we're being honest here. If this were Javonte Williams from before the ACL, we'd be talking differently here. But we're not talking about that Javonte Williams. We're talking Javonte Williams post-ACL, who had his starting reps taken last year, who the Broncos let go in free agency for a reason, and he didn't sign a handsome contract with the Dallas Cowboys when it was all said and done. Don't love that backfield. Wide receivers, CeeDee Lamb. Don't even know if he's going to be on the field because they haven't given him a deal. I would imagine he's probably there, but who's to say? Fines are forgivable when you are a rookie, so he can just keep incurring fines until Jerry Jones pays that man. He could just absolutely do that. You got him at the number one. George Pickens at the number two, which, assuming that the offense works out okay, I don't think is a bad thing. I think having George Pickens as your number two could be a legitimate number one, has legitimate number one potential, and is playing behind a guy like CeeDee Lamb. I think George Pickens is in for a big year, just so long as Dak Prescott can stay upright long enough to give him the ball, and just so long as defenses are completely teeing off on the pass, which, frankly, I don't really see a reason why they wouldn't be. But not a bad 1-2 there. Jalen Tolbert at the number three. I'm not sure about that one. You're going to need to see bigger things from him than you have in the last couple of years. I mean, he's coming off of, I believe, a career-high 600-yard season last year. You can shut the fuck up right now, computer. I was just looking at his numbers. 7 touchdowns last year, so you're expecting another step forward from the former third-round pick Jalen Tolbert here in year 3, I believe. That's one you're looking for. Kevontae Turpin, really valuable player, a guy that if you use him properly, he can really do great things for your offense. Not a guy that you maybe want as your number 3 receiver, but a guy that is going to play a prominent role in this offense, make no mistake about it. And of course, Jonathan Mingo is there. Who the fuck knows, man? He'll probably get cut if I had to imagine, or maybe he'll stay another year. Who's to say? Don't really care, though. Jake Ferguson's your starting tight end. Luke Schoonmaker is the backup there. Not a bad 1-2 of tight ends blocking, I would say. So not bad, especially when Dak Prescott is the quarterback and has done well passing to tight ends in the past. You got a fullback in there, Hunter Lepke. Big son of a bitch coming in there as a true fullback, I would say. Probably going to play a bit of an H-back here in the modern NFL, but a guy that is going to play a lot of lead blocker, and you love to see that here. Bringing back a little bit of more of the big dudes coming back. A dying position that you're just putting in there, and I love to see that. This is where the biggest problems lie, though, is the offensive line. So left tackle, we got Tyler Guyton. Left guard, we got Tyler Smith. Center, we got Cooper Beebe. Right guard, we got Tyler Booker, first-round pick. Might ultimately be their best offensive line when it's all said and done. And right tackle, we got Terrence Steele. It's not an exaggeration to say that this is a bottom 10 offensive line group in the entire league. And maybe I'm being a little bit unkind to the Dallas Cowboys. This is not the offensive line that it was 5 years ago. This is not a classic Dallas Cowboys offensive line when they had Tyron Smith in his heyday. They had Travis Frederick there as the center. Zach Martin as the guard, which I believe he retired this past offseason. So there is that. This is not a classic top 5 of the league Dallas Cowboys offense. This is a Dallas Cowboys offensive line that is a shell of its former self. Tyler Booker is the first piece in rebuilding that offensive line, and that is what this is. This is a rebuilding offensive line. I think they're going to try to run the ball a lot this year, but when your starting running back is Javonte Williams and the backup is Miles Sanders, I just don't know if that's a recipe for sustained success. I think they're going to try a whole lot, but I just don't know how much sustained success they're going to have. And it's going to force them to pass more because they're going to get behind in games because, spoiler alert, the defense is not looking too great either. I just feel like this is the worst team in the division right here. We're going to get more into that defense, but offensively, I don't trust the offensive line to keep Dak Prescott upright. As such, I do not trust Dak Prescott to make the right decision on every down basis. I think Dak Prescott is going to turn the ball over this season. That's probably not a shock to many of you because that's kind of what Dak Prescott has done over the last couple of years, frustratingly so for Dallas Cowboys fans and Mississippi State fans alike. We'll just call it like it is on that one. But offensively, I mean, the ceiling is like upper middle of the pack, but they're not going to find their way outside of the middle of the pack. And honestly, if this offensive line turns out to be a complete disaster, they could find themselves in like the 20s. They could be a not very good offense this year, and they got their work cut out for them. Brian Schottenheimer has a lot of work to put in there because this is the worst Cowboys roster in recent memory as far as I can remember. That it's just slowly degraded to this point where you can sell some big star names, but man, the cupboard is bare right now, and they need to reload big time from where they were in the past. But sure, go trade for Joe Milton. Why not? Makes sense if you don't think about it too much. Trade for Jonathan Mingo. Why not? Makes sense if you don't think about it too much. On the defensive side of the ball, we have got Dante Fowler, Mozzie Smith, Oso Digizua, who I believe they brought in this offseason, and Micah Parsons. Not a bad defensive line. Mozzie Smith has not turned out to be the player that he was expected to be being drafted in the first round. You're hoping Oso Digizua steps up in a big way this year. I think he was actually on the team last year. They just paid him some money. So you definitely hope he steps up in a big way this year. I'm interested to see what Dante Fowler does opposite of Micah Parsons. Not going to be Dexter Lawrence by any stretch of the imagination, but maybe you can get a little bit of production out of him. You know, that's really all you're asking for. You got Donovan Izaraku behind him, Marshawn Nealon, who you're hoping that he steps up in a giant way this coming year for the sake of depth. They really don't have a whole lot of depth in that defensive line. I don't love it all that much. And I somehow dislike the linebackers more. Kenneth Murray, who is a player who I have truly never believed in. I gave him grace for the first 2 years of his career with the Chargers, but it's truly never turned into anything resembling that first-round pick that the Chargers took him with out of Oklahoma way back in the day. Say way back, he's been in the league for like 4 or 5 years at this point. Jack Sanborn, a guy that I believe is a rookie, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was, at Wisconsin last year? Oh, shit, he's not a rookie. He's been in the league for quite some time. His 4th season, actually. I said Jack Sanborn was a fucking rookie. I'm such a dumbass. But that's your middle linebacker. Only one I really like there in the linebacking core is DeMarvion Overshown, because he's a freak and he just flies around out there. But he's coming off an injury, so he's not a guarantee either. Shaky front seven. Outside of Micah Parsons, I don't know that you have a surefire guy that you can count on a down in and down out basis. Next closest thing is probably Overshown if he's healthy, and then Odigizua after that. Not a great makings of a defense on that side of the ball. In the secondary, gets a little bit better. Deron Bland of Pick Six fame is in there at one cornerback. Trayvon Diggs is at the other cornerback. That's the guy that I believe Jerry Jones was alluding to regretting possibly paying him the money. Just full 5-course meal of nothing but foot right in the guy's mouth. It's just unreal. Then you got Donovan Wilson and Malik Hooker on the back end. Malik Hooker having a bounce back year last year. I'm going to butcher this one. Israel Mukwamu, actually I think I nailed that one. Israel Mukwamu is there at the nickelback, which he's got to be a rookie. There's no way. No. It's 2021. Israel Mukwamu has been in the league since 2021? What? So that tells you basically everything you need to know about that. That he's going to be your starting nickel, and I've never heard of him in my entire life. But maybe that's on me. Maybe that's on me. I don't know. I know the secondary is going to have their work cut out for them, because the front seven outside of Micah Parsons is, I don't think, going to be ultra effective. And I think this defense, looking at it on the whole, Micah Parsons is the only thing that could possibly put them in the middle of the pack. Otherwise, they are one of the worst defenses in the league when it's all said and done. Maybe I'm being a little bit hyperbolic on that front, but the front seven is just a disaster, an absolute disaster. Outside of, again, Micah Parsons, DeMarvion Overshown, outside of those two, I mean, the cupboard is bare, and we're just talking about the top line. We're not even talking about the depth, man. I just don't think the Cowboys are going to be very good. I think they're going to finish in last place in this division. And if I had to put a floor on them, I would say the only thing keeping them up is the assumption that Dak Prescott will not be injured. Even then, the floor is still like 5 wins, 5-6 wins, even with Dak Prescott healthy, because that's just how many holes are all over the roster. It's a bad roster. Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones did a bad job, and they've done a bad job over the last couple of years to the fact that this roster has degraded to this point. You can make the excuse about having that quarterback contract and all the other big contracts. All I know is that the Chiefs have got Super Bowl contenders year after year. The Bills have got Super Bowl contenders year after year. The Cowboys do not. And no, Dak Prescott is not on the level of those quarterbacks. Let's not get it twisted there. But they have those big contracts on the books, and they are able to work around them. You can make all the excuses you want. The Cowboys front office just did a fucking terrible job on this roster. No sugarcoating it. They've done a bad job on this roster. So I would say the floor is probably, I mean, I could even bump that down to 4 wins, quite frankly, because that the floor is almost limitless. They could really have a high pick next year, we'll just say, and put themselves in position to draft a great offensive lineman. You hear me? A great offensive lineman, or really just best available at that position. Really, what you should do is trade back, because you have a quarterback, and you're probably going to be in a position where quarterback-needy teams are going to be coming up for one. So that's what they're looking at right there. Ceiling, I would say 7 wins. And maybe that's a little bit harsh. Maybe I'm being a little bit harsh with this Dallas Cowboys team. I just don't think they are that good. And even with having a quarterback like Dak Prescott, I just said it. I love Dak Prescott. He's the greatest player in Mississippi State history. He is not he's not a quarterback on the level of a Patrick Mahomes, of a Justin Herbert, really. And I that one kind of just slipped out, but I mean that. Justin Herbert is unfortunately better than Dak Prescott. He's not on the level of a Joe Burrow. He is like a top 10 quarterback, a top 10 quarterback fringe that you could very easily make the argument for guys going in front of him, like a Baker Mayfield. Even you could make a solid and compelling argument that Baker Mayfield is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott, and I would have no real problems, no real qualms with that argument. So I just don't think it's going to be a very good year for the Cowboys. Maybe give them more credit. Maybe they are leaning into the suck this year, but it is going to suck. And that's what you should take away from this. I think they are the worst team in this division, and that's just kind of my feelings on that whole situation. So we got one more team left. We're on the home stretch. We are an hour and 9 minutes in, so we're going to try and get through this one. An interesting prospect for a team is the New York Giants. They made a bunch of moves this offseason. It would take me too long to kind of hash them all out. But let's just get into the roster because we're already pretty well into this thing. Russell Wilson is slated as the starting quarterback right now. Jameis Winston is slated as the backup. Jackson Dart is slated as the third string. And I think they are going to sit him for a while because he is a bit of a project. A very talented project, mind you, but he is a project. So I think it'll probably be a bit of a revolving door between Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Just kind of depends on how good the offense is around him. And I think they have kind of improved the offense overall. But for right now, Russell Wilson is the starter. We'll see if there's a real competition between him and Jameis Winston for that starting job. But you look at the money, Wilson compared to Winston, it's clear who they signed to be the backup there, and it was not Russell Wilson. So we'll see how that plays out. Middle of the pack at best on the quarterback, and it's probably lower. It's probably towards the bottom part of the league there. Tyrone Tracy coming into his second year. I'm pretty excited to see what he does in his second year. Good 1-2 between him and Devin Singletary. Also, you drafted Cam Skattebo, who is slated as the third string running back. Would not be shocked if he got bumped up to 2 and ultimately started splitting carries mostly with Tyrone Tracy. Deep backfield. I love this New York Giants backfield. I think Tyrone Tracy is going to be in for a big year, which he already had one last year. And I think Cam Skattebo is he's just an undeniable player when it's all said and done. He's a guy that you look at his physicals, you look at his measurables, they're not going to wow you. He's going to get in the building. He's going to get in preseason. And he's just going to do things that are undeniable because he is a bowling ball out there. I love Cam Skattebo. One of my favorite players in this last draft. I don't care where you drafted him, 4th, 5th round, wherever you drafted him, he's going to find his way into the rotation. I don't think he's going to take Tyrone Tracy's job, but he's going to split carries and get his time in the lineup. I assure you of that. I love Cam Skattebo, and I love that pickup. The Giants got better by virtue of bringing in Cam Skattebo, and they have a sneaky deep backfield. I love this backfield for the Giants. Wide receivers, still not great, but we're moving in the right direction, I suppose. Although it looks like they have actually, same wide receivers they had last year. So who's to say? Who's to say? Whomst amongst us? Whomst amongst us? Malik Neighbors still your number 1. They're going to absolutely feed him the ball. I would recommend drafting him in fantasy. Hopefully he doesn't get injured. If he does, the Giants are going to be a tough spot. Wan'Dale Robinson is your number 2. Darius Slayton is your number 3. That is a bad receiving core right there. There's no way of sugarcoating it. They're still another probably offseason or 2 away from having a truly solid receiving core in there. Jalen Hyatt, at this point, you hope for the best, but you're not really holding your breath. Year 2 didn't really work out quite as well as you'd hoped for Jalen Hyatt. You're just hoping year 3 ultimately sees him step up in a way that is useful for the offense. That's truly all you can have. Little Jordan Humphrey, listed as a wide receiver. He's a special teamer through and through, and that's going to help the team. That's where his real impact is going to be. He is a Pro Bowl special teamer, a demon on the outside as a gunner, and just a general special teams guy. I don't even really factor him into the offense. He just deserves mentioning because he's a guy that helps. He helps your team in ways that the average fan does not and cannot quantify. So you love to have him on the team. Will not be seriously in the wide receiver rotation. He might be in there a little bit, but there's a reason he's like the 5th wide receiver. Zach Pascal will probably be getting more traditional wide receiver reps than him. But little Jordan Humphrey will make his presence felt on this team. I assure you of that. Theo Johnson is your starting tight end. Daniel Bellinger as the backup. Theo Johnson was a 4th rounder out of Penn State last year. So, hey, good pedigree with the college that he went to, I suppose. But we'll see how far that gets him. Daniel Bellinger, I would have kind of expected him to be the starting tight end, but we'll see. As far as the receiving core on the whole, it's not pretty. It is really not pretty. I think you're going to be running a lot of runs this year. A lot of runs. And, yeah, offense still a work in progress. If there is a bit of a bright side here, there's a bit of a bright side that I can say is that, one, the energy saver is on and I'm about to lose battery. That's not a bright side at all. That's actually quite concerning. But Andrew Thomas still there on the offensive line. You bring in John Runyon, solid offensive lineman there to plug in there at left guard. John Michael Schmitz, sure. Did they draft him this year? Or has he been in the league for a while? I'm going to look like an idiot. They drafted him in 2023 out of Minnesota. So you're hoping that one works out. We'll see on that point. Greg Van Roten, a guy that, I mean, again, sure, in his 11th season, bit of a journeyman. Why not? Veteran in there. We'll see how it works. Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle. So did they get much better? No. The offensive line does still stink like it has for the past decade. That being said, it's probably marginally better than it was last year. I'm really racking my brain to come up with positives here. The very least, you're going to be asked to run the ball a lot, and that's probably one of the easier things that an offensive line can do. So that's good. That's good. And maybe John Runyon will be the savior that you need. We'll see. Not a good offensive line. If I had to guess, this will probably be a bottom half of the league offense. I will say, I'm going to go out on the limb and say this offense will probably be in the 20s. You just hope that they're going to build this whole thing around the run game. I mean, make no mistake about it. It's the lone bright spot outside of Malik Neighbors that they have on the entire offense is the backfield. So I would expect a lot of shots to Malik Neighbors and a whole lot of runs to Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary, and Cam Scatterbo in whatever order you put them in. So not great to start with. Defensively, a little bit better. They have built up the cupboard there on the defensive side of the ball. Raheem Nunez-Roches, who's been there for a little bit. Dexter Lawrence, one of the best defensive tackles in the whole league, needs no introduction. Roy Robertson-Harris, who's kind of bounced around here over the last couple of years. Dexter Lawrence holds that whole thing together on the front three. I really don't have a whole lot of worries there. He's going to plug that interior with the best of them. Brian Burns on the outside there rushing the passer. Bobby Okereke in the middle. Micah McFadden also in the middle. Not so high on Micah McFadden, but we'll see on that front. Just because I'm not familiar with this game does not mean he can't make an impact. And then, of course, they drafted Abdul Carter there on the outside. Your saving grace is going to be that Abdul Carter shows up as advertised and Brian Burns just keeps on chugging along. Because at this point, and he actually bumped down Kayvon Thibodeau, who they drafted top 3 a couple of years back. He probably needs to mature. That's been that way since day one, but I digress on that front. He is going to need to, the pass rush is what this thing is built around. Unfortunately, I have a feeling that a lot of teams are going to be running on you a whole lot. But that's where Dexter Lawrence comes in there. I think this defense is very, very solid on the front 7. And it only got better with Abdul Carter in there because I think he's going to show up day one and be a very, very good player. Rightfully so ahead of Kayvon Thibodeau because I feel like I don't care how much older Kayvon is than Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter is a man where Kayvon Thibodeau is a boy. I'm just talking between the ears. Kayvon Thibodeau is not quite what Abdul Carter is between the ears. Abdul Carter is a fucking animal. I am excited to see Abdul Carter and love that he's in that spotlight there in New York. Look on the back end. We'll see, man. They got some good players back there. So Paulson Adebo they brought in from the Saints this last year. Solid pickup there. Tyler Nubin, a guy that played solid in spurts in the last season. He's still there at strong safety. They bring in Javon Holland, who maybe isn't the Javon Holland of 3 years ago necessarily, but still a very solid safety. There's a reason they paid him $15 a year, I believe. Deontay Banks there. First-round pick from, I believe, last year. He is there at the other cornerback opposite of Paulson Adebo, and you got Drew Phillips there at the nickel corner, which I don't really know a whole lot about that guy. But defense, ultimately, sneaky top 10 contender. I actually like this defensive group a lot if they just have good coordinating on that side of the ball. They got the players to do it. I like this defense a whole lot better than I mean, if we're just talking roster, I'd probably second behind the Eagles, and really you can make an argument for first there as far as roster is concerned, because you have a few less questions maybe on the defensive side of the ball than maybe you do with the Eagles. I'd still put them at 2 behind the Eagles, but you can make an argument for 1. They're a sneaky good defensive team this year. They're going to need to be, and I think they're going to get hung out to dry, and the numbers might not look as good because you're going to get probably a bit of a bad offense effect where the defense playing their asses off, but ultimately you just run out of gas at some point. I watched the Vikings do this. I can't remember the exact year, but it was when Sam Bradford was starting and they couldn't score a damn point. Had the best defense in the league for about 6 weeks, and then the bottom fell out because you can't just, unless you're the 2001 Ravens, you just can't win every game with your defense. It takes an all-time defense to do that. So I kind of see a similar fate here for the Giants in a lot of respects, but the wild card is Jackson Dart. If Jackson Dart comes in and plays well, which he will come in at some point and play, it's just a matter of time. They put 2 transition quarterbacks ahead of him, so they could buy themselves some time to not necessarily play him right out of the gate. Maybe you get a month. Maybe he gets like midway through the season before you ultimately play him. He's going to play at some point. We'll see how he plays. I don't think he's going to have the greatest supporting cast around him, but he's a runner. He is a great athlete. He can throw the ball. It's just a matter of how well you can improve the decision-making. NFL decision-making is needed, and the accuracy is going to be in question there. But, okay, yes, I know I need to plug in the laptop. I'm about to do it here in just a second. So we'll see how it works out there. Overall, floor for this team, I would say right there with the Cowboys, 4-5 wins. They could legitimately be bad. They don't have a great roster. It's a very good defense, but it's plagued by the same issues they always have, in that who's the fucking quarterback? What the hell are you doing with this offensive personnel group outside of the backfield and the number 1 wide receiver? We still don't know. So floor is very much where it's always been, especially with the quarterback situation going on and everything with the offensive line that they have there in the building. Ceiling, I'm gonna put them a shade above the Cowboys because I feel a little bit better about them. I would put it like 8 wins, and I think that's just like if Brian Daboll has a bit of a bounce back year coaching, plays a little bit above the potential here. I could see 8 wins in the offing. I don't think that the Giants are going to be a playoff team. I would be shocked if they were, frankly. But I think they're going to be playing better than they have been over the last couple of years. You're going to start to see them moving in the right direction. We'll see if the patience from the ownership group pays off, because they've been more patient and lenient than I would have been in this situation. I like to think I'm a bit of a patient guy when it comes to these decisions with the head coaches and GMs. We shall see. We shall see on that front. So there you have it with the NFC East, folks. That is all. I need to plug this thing in here like right now, because we are we are less than 10 minutes from this laptop coming to an end here as far as the battery is concerned. So thank you so much for tuning in to Unqualified Analysis. If you enjoyed, go ahead and subscribe, like, rate, share, all that good stuff. Follow on Twitter, CalebVUA. Shoot me a DM if you want to opine in any way, shape, or form. Outside of that, we do this thing once a week for now until we get into the football season. Then we'll go back to twice a week with the college football, NFL, all that good stuff going on. With that said, thank you so much for tuning into Unqualified Analysis. As always, I have got no clue what I am talking about. That being said, one thing I learned this week, I think I wrote one down. I think I saved my ass on this one. I don't know for sure. I did not. I have not been listening to a whole lot of informational podcasts here of recent. I've been busy. Been a busy boy right now. That being said, I will say, I believe this is a good one. So I don't remember the exact days. I believe it is 1091. It took Tiger Woods the exact amount of days for him to win 4 majors as it did Scottie Scheffler. So it took them the exact amount of time. A lot of talk about Scottie Scheffler with him winning the Open Championship, which I obviously did not mention. Bad podcast host there. But that's my fun fact. It's taken the same amount of time for both Tiger Woods and Scottie Scheffler to get to this point of winning 4 majors. Wild. I think we are still probably a decade away from really having that seriously as a conversation. We need to see even more dominance from him because that is how great Tiger Woods was in his time. But crazy pace he's on right now. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to get this thing plugged in. I will see you guys on Wednesday. Enjoy the week. Enjoy the weekend, folks. I'll talk to you then.